All right, let's look at some scope rings and talk about them just a little bit. I've got everything from some very cheap. I don't know what they give for these things, but they're really cheap. Picatinny rail mount scope rings. I think everybody has seen these. These are the really tall ones. They got the big opening here. They got the flat square looking top on them. 4 screws. These are cheap. They work really well. I have had this part right here. I don't know if you can see that. The part that actually does the locking. I have had that split in two. When you tighten the nut down, the thing actually broke out. I want to say those were on a dovetail pair, not the Picatinny rail, style. Anyway, those are a really good option for a lot of people. They're I don't know if they're $10 on Amazon, eBay. If you're having problems with running out of elevation on your scope, and you've heard people talking about you should get a pair of adjustable mounts. Well, generally people will refer to these West Hunter mounts. They even have their little name on them right there, and call these adjustable mounts. Well, they are adjustable height mounts. However, this is meant for one to be all the way up and the other one to be all the way down. They're not meant, they don't work like that. You can get away with maybe one notch. If you can see right there, they have graduates on them on this centerpiece. And that's because you can take this screw out of it right here. And I'll do that real quick. I say I will, that thing's in there tight. There we go. You take this screw all the way out. And what you do is you slide this thing out. See how that slides out? Alright. And that thing slides out, and you can see that it is serrated right there. Inside there and on here on both sides. So this one doesn't do any tilting like this. You can just take this one out and put it in and reference the marks to know if you got them both in the same mark or not. And like I said, if you got the back mount all the way up because you're running out of elevation and you think you want to raise the back mount to get some of that back, these are not meant for that. You can probably get away with one graduate, just one little small line, maybe two, before you start to put your scope and your scope rail in a bind. Meaning when you tighten this thing down and set it, you mount these on your gun, and you got the back one up and the front one down, and when you take the caps off and put your scope in there and tighten them down, one of them's going to be up. It ain't going to be both of them pointing the same direction looking down. One's going to be up, and it's going to actually put marks on your scope. It is not going to want to do it. So and I've heard people refer to these things as adjustable mounts, and this is what they should get for having that problem. And you can do it. I'm going to show you how. If you like these mounts, and I do, these are good mounts. They hang on really tight to no matter what you put them on, and haven't had a problem out of them yet. They're really well made for a cheap ring, and I don't think they're $20. Anyway, if you take these apart and you take a flat file, and you very carefully file the serrated lines off of this side and this side until you can just barely see a hint of them. And you got to be flat. You got to do it all the way across. You can't, it's kind of tedious. You can't take them off of both of them. You can only take them off of one, right? Otherwise, these things will slide together. And when you put the screw in, it will never tighten down. They do not have that much flex in them. But if you take it off of just one piece, now when you put this piece in there, that piece will turn. And you can get away with raising the rear one all the way up and the front one all the way down, and putting it on your gun and getting rid of any barrel droop you have on a Springer, or if you're just trying to shoot, say, 100 yards and you're out of elevation with your scope, something like that. Those would be really great for that. That would be a good modification to do to them. They also are 30 millimeter, and they come with these plastic inserts so that you can use them with a 1-inch scope. I know a lot of people are skeptical about anything plastic to do with their scope. These are very hard plastic. They will not crush or move or expand or anything like that. I've not had one problem out of them when I do that. and they hang onto the scope really good. They don't give me any grief. And the older scope rings that they used to come out with, the first ones I knew of that were fully adjustable, were the Sun Optics rings. If you ever see a pair of these goofy looking things, all right, these are adjustable up and down. They tilt. The top part of the ring tilts to match whatever angle you've got going on, you know, trying to shoot long distance or whatever. They're also adjustable left and right, so you can optically center your scope. You'll have to look that up. That's not in this video. And these little screws right here, there's one on this side, a little set screw, if I can get that in the picture there, and one on this side. So what you do is you loosen these set screws up right here, and if you turn the top half of this ring like that, it gets taller. Literally gets taller, right? And that's because that little part right there, that is not a scope pin stop, right? That is a metal rod that goes all the way through this thing. It's aluminum. This screw threads through the aluminum and into the steel, so there's not much chance of it stripping out on you. And that set screw there and this set screw here squeeze down on that part right there. I don't know if I can get that in good light or not, but it's like a split nut that goes over it's threaded on that bolt is threaded, and that's a split nut that goes over that. And these screws, one pushes on one side, one pushes on the other, and they squeeze down on the bolt and they lock it so it can't move anymore, right? But if you loosen this screw and tighten this screw, you've moved the whole top of the scope ring over. You just literally moved it over. That way, if you have any alignment issues, you can move the back of the scope one way or the other and get the windage closer to center before you tighten all this stuff down and then fine tune it with your scope. Those are some of the first ones. Those are sometimes beyond people's ability to operate this scope ring successfully and not have any movement after they get it done. Those are a little on the difficult side. So the new ones I found are made by Monstrum, and these are probably made in the same place as the West Hunter because they're really similar. The top of these things don't look exactly alike, but you know, these are probably made close to the same place. The design is really, really close. If you'll look at these have a steel bolt that goes from one side to the other, and this is actually a nut that tightens down on it. And this one has small screws, and the little aluminum bosses built into this, those line up with your Picatinny rail, and they fit it very snug. So it threads, these screws right here, they thread into that little boss right there. That boss is sticking out there for a reason, right? So anyway, the cool thing about these is you loosen up a little tiny screw in the middle, and these two screws here, and they raise up or down for your height, right? That's not a lot. Doesn't look like a lot of adjustment but if you're, it's probably a 1/4 inch. Anyway, if your scope is just a little too close to the barrel, these will give you a little adjustment to go from, say, a medium ring to a high ring. What's cool about them is that when they raise up, they also tilt whichever way you want. So if you have the rear one elevated a lot and the front one all the way down, you can loosen these screws up, tighten your scope down in here, and it doesn't put any pressure on your scope at all. So when you get it set where you want, you can kind of snug that center screw down there, and it'll hold it in place while you take I think it's a T15. That's not an Allen wrench, that's a Torx. I think it's a T15. You snug that one down with a small wrench that they provide, and it'll hold it in place while you tighten this one down and this one. And that'll lock your ring into place, whatever your elevation you want, or whatever kind of, you know. Again, you would optically center your scope, so you're getting the best performance out of your scope and the most adjustment from your elevation and windage screws. And then you would, if it's shooting low, you just raise this rear mount, you just raise it up a little bit, and if it starts to shoot too high, push it back down just a little bit. When you get it where you want it, you can tighten that little small screw up, and it'll hold it in place temporarily while you tighten these big screws down and put good pressure on them so that it can't move. And these are, like I said, they're made by Monstrum. They're really wide across here. They have a really wide insert that goes in. It snaps in real nice. And they have 4 screws that hold each cap on, which is, you know, kind of a must for me. I don't know. I just that's what I prefer. I want them to be on there really good and tight. And if you don't have any kind of an issue with elevation or something, you just want a really well-made set of rings. Maybe you don't have Picatinny and you want something that's not. West Hunter does make these in a dovetail, and of course the old Sun Optics. I don't even know if you can get those anymore, but those are dovetail. Don't know about the Monstrums. I've not seen those in a dovetail before. So if anybody knows of them, you can post that in the comments. But if you're not having any issues, you can get a set of these BKL doubles. And these are an odd animal, is that they are self-centering. So when you tighten that screw down, it squeezes both sides of this thing together, and it centers itself over the center of the receiver. And those are quite a bit more. Those are more than double what any of those other rings are. And anyway, but those have never failed me. I've got those on my field target rig. I put them on everything I can put them on, and they've not let me down yet. So anyway, the West Hunters. If there's a model number on there, yeah, WH202. They come in several sets of colors. I mostly get silver and black. I've got several of those on different rifles. The Monstrums, I've not seen these in different colors. They just came in black. I just recently got 2 more sets of these for future projects. And the BKLs, I think I might have 1 more set of those somewhere, but it'd be tough to find them. Anyway, if you're interested in those things, there's a little bit of information to help you go by. These will, like I said, will go from roughly a medium to a high ring with the adjustment. Same with the West Hunters. They just don't tilt unless you file the serrated part off of one or the other pieces. Don't file it off of both of them, or you've made a space and now they won't tighten down properly. And, you know, obviously the good old, these are like 15 bucks or 10 or 15 bucks or something on Amazon, eBay. These are all over the place. They come with a lot of guns sometimes. Don't think you can find the old Sun Optics, but if you're shooting a PCP, not a Springer, I don't know how well these work on Springer because I don't put them on them. You can get a lot of adjustment out of this one right here. This will fix windage problems, everything. Don't know how fragile they are. These screws right here I didn't point out. These screws here, when you tighten those down, they lock that screw so it can't move. Because this is the one that's relevant for the windage, and it squeezes that little. I'll never get a good. There it is. There's a split right there. It squeezes that thing together. That's a nut, and it squeezes it together over the bolt, and those 2 screws keep those from moving or backing out. So they might hold up under recoil. I don't know, but I put them on PCPs. You can get the 30mm 1-inch. Do not know if you can even find these anymore, or if they even made them shorter than this. But that's a really tall ring. That thing's on up there a little ways. If you look at the, see if I can center the hole up reasonable on this. That thing is probably a 1/16 of an inch higher than these really tall ones. So it's a really tall ring and has capability of going even higher. So anyway, that's all I got about that. If you got any questions, ask them in the comments and I'll get to them when I can.